And I want to say good afternoon, everybody. Welcome everybody here to the house of Jacob.
Good afternoon, Brother Daniel.
Brother Frank gave you the title of the lesson. Again, it is Circumcision of the Flesh and the Heart. You know, this circumcision, when it's of the flesh, it's dealing with the males. But then when you say circumcision of the heart, that is everybody. Everybody's going to have to be circumcised of the heart, whether you male, female, Jew, Gentile, does not matter. And all the males got to be circumcised, whether they Jew or Gentile, it does not matter either. Because if you expect to get salvation, then you're going to have to be circumcised. We're going to show you that in this lesson. Now, when the book talks about being circumcised in the flesh, it's talking about the male organ having the foreskin cut off. But then when it talks about being circumcised in the heart, it is talking about putting away the sins of the flesh. And everybody's going to have to do that. And we are going to show you that in this lesson as well. Now, we're going to start here in Genesis chapter 17, and we're going to begin reading at verse 9. Genesis 17, we're going to pick it up at verse 9. This is when circumcision was instituted. And circumcision was instituted by God. It was not instituted by Moses. It was instituted by God. Now, we're going to read a little bit of this. Then we're going to come back to this later on in this lesson, and we're going to analyze it real closely. But I just want to read just a little bit of this covenant that God made with Abraham. He made the covenant with Abraham, made it with his seed, and he made it with the stranger as well. Let's start reading here at Genesis chapter 17 and begin reading at verse 9, 17 and 9. Okay, go ahead and read, brother.
And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. Now
this is the Lord, and he's speaking to Abraham. He said, you shall keep my covenant therefore you and your seed after you in their generations. Go ahead and read on.
This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you, between me and you and thy seed after thee.
Go ahead.
Every man child among you shall be circumcised.
Go ahead.
And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you.
Now he said, now this is God, and he's telling Abraham, he said, you know, you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. And he said, this will be a token, it said, of the covenant between me and you. Go ahead and read on.
Every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed.
Now he said Abraham and his seed, then he turned around and then he said, and his stranger as well, that is not of thy seed. Go ahead and read a little bit more. We're going to get back and analyze all of this later on in the lesson. Go ahead and read though.
Verse 13. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised.
Go ahead.
And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant.
Now he says here, he said, any uncircumcised, then that flesh shall be cut off from his people. And the Lord said to Abraham's seed and to the stranger as well. I just want to make that clear. Let's go and show you something else the Lord said about circumcision. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. I just wanted to kind of set everything up here, make everything clear as to what the Lord said here. Because, you know, we're going to get into a little controversy here about the circumcision thing. And when we get over the New Testament and start reading some of the writings of Paul, not just the writings of Paul, but some of the things that were said about this circumcision by all of the apostles. So we just want to make a few things very clear here as to what the Lord said about this circumcision. Now this is the Lord, and he's telling Abraham here, you know, circumcise the foreskin of yourself and your seed and even the stranger as well. Now, let's go over to Leviticus chapter 23, and we'll begin reading at verse 1, Leviticus 23, and we'll pick it up at verse 1. Okay, go ahead and read, brother.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying.
Now, it is the Lord speaking unto Moses, and he is telling Moses what to tell the people. Because, you know, when you start dealing with the laws and all of that, everybody want to say they are the laws of Moses. But it is always the Lord telling Moses what to tell the people. Moses didn't come up with none of this stuff. It was always the Lord telling Moses what to tell the people. So if you got a problem with the law, then you got a problem with the Lord. You don't have a problem with the house of Jacob. You don't have a problem with Moses. You got a problem with the Lord. That's who your problem is with. Go ahead and read on.
Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of the Lord.
Now he says, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feasts of the Lord. But what he said to the children of Israel, it applies to everybody. But now he said, concerning the feast of the Lord. Go ahead and read.
Which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts.
Go ahead.
6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings.
Now, we are not dealing with the Sabbath day, but if anybody asks you, if anybody wonder why we do our service on Saturday, well, this is why right here. Because God told Moses to tell the people that they are to have a holy convocation on the 7th day. It did not change either. When Jesus came and died, it did not change. He did not nail this to the cross. Jesus nailed a law to the cross, but the law that he nailed to the cross was the animal sacrifice law. That's another lesson for another time. But go ahead and read on, brother.
Verse 4.
Go ahead.
These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons.
Now he said, these are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. This is God telling Moses, tell the people this, that these are the feasts of the Lord, holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. Go ahead and read on.
In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
Now let's go back and look at when the Passover was instituted. Let's go back to Exodus chapter 12. We're going to pick it up at verse 43. Because the Lord said, now speak unto the children of Israel, didn't it? As if only the children of Israel had to keep these. But I'm going to show you, this was for everybody that was going to serve the true and living God. But there were certain stipulations put on it for Israel as well as for the stranger. Start reading at Exodus chapter 12, and we'll begin reading at verse 43. Exodus 12 and verse 43. Okay, when you get it, go ahead and read, brother.
And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover.
Now, who's saying unto who?
The Lord.
The Lord is saying unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. Go ahead and read.
There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof.
He said, you know, after he have been circumcised, then he shall eat thereof. So now, if he is a stranger, even if he is Israel, if he have not been circumcised, then he can't eat of the Passover. He cannot keep the commandment that the Lord said that they are supposed to keep. Go ahead and read on.
A foreigner and an hired servant shall not eat thereof.
See what it said? A foreigner and a hired servant, meaning anybody other than Israel, it said, shall not eat thereof. Go ahead and read.
In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house.
Go ahead.
Neither shall you break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it.
Go ahead.
And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it.
Now he said, when the stranger, he said all Israel got to keep it. And then he said, when the stranger that sojourn among you, if he keep it, then let all of his males be circumcised. Go ahead and read on.
And he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof.
Now that meant Israel or the stranger, does not matter. No uncircumcised. So now, if you're not circumcised, then you can't keep the Passover. The Passover that God commanded that his servants to keep. Go ahead and read that next verse.
One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you.
So now, Lord done made the covenant with Abraham. And he said, Abraham, you and your seed must be circumcised. And the stranger, they must be circumcised as well. Then the Lord turned around and said, no uncircumcised person, whether he be Israel or whether he be stranger, can keep the Passover. Let's go now to Numbers chapter 9, and we'll begin reading at verse 7. Numbers 9, we're going to pick it up at verse 7. Just laying a little groundwork here. I want you to understand what God said about this circumcision thing before we get into the controversial stuff, which we're going to clear it all up anyway.
Sir.
Start reading at Numbers chapter 9, and we'll begin reading at verse 7. Numbers 9 and 7. Go ahead and read, brother.
And those men said unto him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering of the Lord in his appointed season among the children of Israel.
Go ahead and read.
And Moses said unto them, Stand still, and I will hear what the Lord will command concerning you.
Now, they wanted to keep the Passover, and said, we've been kept back from keeping it because we have been defiled by a dead body. So now, Moses said, well, just be still, and I'm going to see what the Lord said we ought to do, how we should deal with this issue, how God says we should deal with this issue. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying.
And again, it is the Lord speaking unto Moses. It is always the Lord speaking unto Moses. Go ahead and read.
Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. The 14th day of the second month at even they shall keep it.
Now, they were supposed to keep it on the 14th day of the first month. But now he said if he was unclean by reason of a dead body, was in a journey on the 14th day of the first month, then he could keep it the 14th day of the second month. Go ahead and read on.
And eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. But the man that is clean and is not in a journey and forbear to keep the Passover.
Now he said, but the man that is clean and that is not in a journey, but yet he forbid to keep the Passover. Look at what God says. Go ahead and read.
Even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people.
See what it said? Even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people. So in other words, you got to keep it, or either you will be cut off from among the Lord's people. Go ahead and read on.
Because he brought not the offering of the Lord in his appointed season.
Go ahead.
That man shall bear his sin.
That man going to bear his sin. In other words, he going to pay the penalty for his sin. So now, you got to keep the Passover. Lord said if you don't keep it, you're going to be cut off. But then the Lord said, in order to keep it, you got to be circumcised. Because he said no male, whether he be Israel or stranger, can eat of the Passover, right? So you got a real dilemma there, don't you? Either you going to get circumcised or you're not going to be able to keep the commandment that God gave you to keep. And that he said he's going to cut you off for if you don't keep it. Just wanted to lay that groundwork. Now, the Lord made this circumcision thing a law. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 12, and we'll begin reading at verse 1 rather. Leviticus chapter 12, we began reading at verse 1. Leviticus 12 and 1. 12 and 1. Okay, go ahead and read.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying.
Now again, it is the Lord speaking unto Moses and telling Moses what to tell the people. Go ahead and read.
Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a man have conceived seed and born a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. If a woman,
go ahead.
If a woman, that would be a miracle, wouldn't it? Verse 2. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed and born a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of separation. For her infirmity shall she be unclean.
Go ahead.
And if the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised.
Now, this Lord, he's making a law now. He said, if she have a male child, then on the 8th day have been saved. Well, that was the covenant that he made with Abraham, wasn't it?
Sir.
With Abraham and with his seed, and even with the stranger that sojourned among them. That, all males need to be circumcised on the 8th day. Go ahead and read on.
And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 33 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled.
Go ahead and read.
But if